Let's first take a look at the utilitarian argument saying that MP3 copying is okay. So first of all, there are many more people that listen to music than there are music publishers. So we're already looking at the people as a whole, as well, most of them are music listeners. And these listeners are very pleased to get convenient, virtually free access to the music. Furthermore, music publishers should also be pleased because they get so much publicity. In fact, it's free publicity for their product. I mean, when a radio station plays music, it's free to the listeners, and many of the listeners will go out and buy the music that they've heard on the radio. The same thing happens when listeners download MP3 files. So, I mean, that makes sense, right? Because, I mean, the music on a CD provides slightly better sound quality than MP3 music. So, many will choose to buy legal copies after downloading it, even though they don't really need it. So, some of them do support the artist, so they want to make sure they get paid. So, they'll download it, they'll listen to it. If they like it, they'll go buy the CD for it. So there is some market research that shows that MP3 downloading can increase the sales of of music CDs. Opponents of MP3 sharing will point out that the overall music sales revenue has fallen dramatically since 1999, but this can't be completely blamed on file sharing. It may be part of it, but it's not the only reason. I mean, during the CD era, people bought complete albums, but now today, music retailers like iTunes and Amazon encourage consumers to buy one song at a time, which has also hurt overall album sales. So while album sales have gone down, individual sales are going up. Now let's take a look at the utilitarian argument that says MP3 copying is not okay. So yeah, there's some early research that does suggest that MP3 file copying may have initially encouraged CD buying. But later research has shown that overall retail music sales have declined rapidly. I mean, that's the real long-term effect of widespread copying of copyrighted materials. And we talked about iTunes and Amazon. Well, the main reason why these companies are selling one song at a time instead of albums is because it's the only way to compete with illegal MP3 file sharing. And then also, if the publishers can't make a fair profit, then less and less music is going to be published. Eventually, both music listeners and music publishers, including the people who make the music, are going to lose if there's less and less music out there. In addition, copyright protection is the law. So when you download MP3 files, if you download a copyrighted material, it's still the law. You're doing illegal activity. So I mean, this widespread criminal activity will result in a widespread disrespect for the law in general, and that's a very dangerous consequence. Well, we just gave utilitarian arguments for and against copying MP3s. So which argument is right? Well, if you were hoping for me to give you the answer, you're going to be sadly disappointed. This isn't something that where we just say, okay, this is the right answer, this is the wrong answer. The purpose here is just to kind of go over these different arguments and for you to make the decisions of what you find is correct and what is incorrect, or what's morally valid or what's not ethical and so forth. So the answer really isn't as straightforward as we would like. I mean, deciding what's right and wrong is not always easy. I mean, compared to something like searching in a sorted array. If you want to do binary search, then there's a plug and chug algorithm that does the job very nicely. But there isn't really an all-purpose ethics algorithm that's guaranteed to provide an answer to every ethical question. But we still have to make these decisions. And we want to make those decisions on reasonable grounds and not just on whims or just initial instincts. So ethicists actually depend on what's called a dialectic to try to make a better and better ethical decisions. So here's the idea. So we move back and forth between different viewpoints. So we'll criticize each of them and just try to learn more from each viewpoint. So like if you're thinking more of a debate, one side is actually trying to win by undermining the opposition and building up the arguments for its position. So that's what you do in a normal debate. So ideally, in a dialectic, the ultimate goal is for both sides to quote unquote win by moving closer to the truth from two different perspectives. So we're just trying to get a better understanding from both of these perspectives. So I mean, in fact, it's perfectly okay for people that are engaged in a dialectic to change their minds. In fact, that's the point. So I mean, by systematically reasoning about the issue, the back and forth of the argument can bring all parties to a more well-reasoned and justified decision. I mean, all we're trying to do here is just get more information about both sides. But I mean, there's never a guarantee that the two sides in a dialectic will arrive at identical positions. I mean, it's possible, but more often the participants in the dialectic still disagree, but hopefully they have a better understanding of the reasons why there are still disagreements. In the spirit of a dialectic, let's examine the strengths and weaknesses of the two utilitarian arguments with this MP3 copying issue. So we'll first address the issue with music sales, because both arguments actually talked about it. So both of them did cite evidence about music sales to bolster their position. So people that were in favor of MP3 copying claimed that it increases the sales of music. People that were against MP3 copying claimed that it decreased the overall music sales. So here we have a difference in fact and not just a difference in opinion. Well, if we look at the facts, so there were some published statistics about it, worldwide music recording sales actually have went down and not gone up. And this took a while to happen, and it seems like this downward trend has continued over the last decade. Like even the past several years, revenue for sales of recorded music fell even more. Like we're talking like at least 8%. Now, in the early days of Napster, sales were climbing. But as more and more files were being downloaded for free and more MP3 hardware was being sold, CD and album sales did fall. Even with the introduction of things like iTunes, where we can legally download music, I mean, they still continue to decline. So, I mean, it looks like here that at least on this point, the MP3 opponents have a stronger argument. So, I mean, it often happens that consequences take a while to become visible, and that seems to be what happened here. Now let's take a look at the next main point in support of MP3 copying, the happiness of the groups of listeners that are getting free music. Now, opponents of copying would make the argument to say, take a look at both the short-term and long-term effects. So just hold on here for a second. Consider both. In the short term, listeners will get tremendous benefits. They're going to enjoy listening to the free music. But in the long run, there may be less music available for copying because artists and publishers will have a less incentive to create and distribute their music. So, I mean, this does make economic sense. I mean, we can't prove it, but it's a possible valid argument that there may be less music that people listen to down the road. Now let's look at the point that was raised by opponents of MP3 copying. The fact that, well, it doesn't matter. If you're downloading copyrighted material, it's still illegal. So opponents claim that the widespread disregard of copyright protections will have as a consequence widespread disrespect of the law. Well, this claim is a little difficult to prove empirically. I mean, can we really say that because people are downloading music illegally, they're not going to obey other laws? I don't think we can really prove that so much. So we can't really settle this with the statistics. And MP3 advocates don't often claim that breaking the law would actually have any of these types of effects. So this particular claim isn't really a legitimate one. I don't think we're going to see anarchy just because people are downloading illegal music. Or I should just say downloading music illegally. The dialectic so far seems to be favoring banning MP3 copying. I mean, of the 3 points that we discussed, 2 of them kind of go in favor of MP3 banning, and the third one, though the MP3 banning group didn't really have a valid argument. But there are still some interesting counter arguments to point out. So, for example, some musicians, particularly the ones that aren't very well known, actually support MP3 copying. See, these musicians haven't been able to get recording contracts yet, so they use MP3 files as a way to distribute and publicize their music, as well to get interest in upcoming performances. So for them, MP3 copying does have some positive consequences um, for both listeners and the music makers. Another point that advocates would claim is that um, only a small percentage of the money that's spent on legally purchased music actually goes to the artists. The rest of the money actually goes to the people who market the music or who produce the music, but not really the artists themselves. And some artists, including some of the few bands who have not really achieved commercial success, have actually decided to give away their music on the internet for free. And then they just make their money from live concerts. Um, So they're content just to accept the reduced sales of their albums if it means more people will actually come to the live concert. So that's where they get their money. So I mean, from this perspective, MP3 copying is really just the first wave of a new way of thinking about making and sharing music. So I mean, this new way will favor music listeners and music makers who like to perform live, and it'll de-emphasize the need for large publishing companies. Some people think that these are good directions, although most music companies are not going to agree with this. So what's the final result? Well, there really isn't one. An ethical dialectic rarely has a clean stopping point because we can always make better and better arguments, and there are often strong points that are remaining on different sides of an argument. For example, we didn't even discuss the fact that some of the MP3 music copying takes place using university and corporate computers, and that's a whole other issue in itself. I mean, these machines are not supposed to be used for those purposes. So, I mean, the whole point here is we're not going to tell you what's the correct answer. We don't know what the correct answer is. Now, you might have some opinion about it, but what we want you to do is just kind of consider all the issues. And so we don't think that this is a final word on the issue, and we don't want you to think that this is also the final word on the issue. There is no final word just yet. It's still an ongoing debate. So we still have this deadlock. Now, some music distributors have come up with new ways to sell music online. So let's just give you one example of this. What Apple's iTunes has done is shown that music consumers will opt for legal copying if the system is convenient and reasonably priced. So what they started to do is have their iCloud allow music studios to make money even from illegally downloaded MP3 files. So iCloud will allow users to store their music in a locker on computers belonging to Apple, and then they can listen to that music on their phone or their computer. Now, if all the music was purchased on iTunes, then the service is free. But if it's not, then the users can pay a yearly fee to get access to their other songs, even those obtained illegally. And part of this yearly fee could be used to pay back music studios. Now, whether it is or not, we can't prove that right now, but part of that fee could be used to help give some money to the studios.